Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we'd do another thrift store haul because I picked up a bunch more stuff and I want to get it off my desk. And I'm doing this quicker now so that they don't pile up, so that my videos end up being like an hour and a half long. This should maybe take 20, 30 minutes, hopefully. And let's get to it. All right. So, first up is I found this The Road to Wigan Pier by George Orwell, the biography. Is this a biography? Autobiography. It's an autobiography. Basically, it's him going up north to the coal mines, I think, in England. Where was it taking place? Coal areas of Lancashire and Yorkshire or Yorkshire. All right. So basically, he went up there and experienced it with the coal miners, mass unemployment, and he came back with um, I don't know if you would call it hatred, but a dislike or a dislike of the philosophy or the maybe I'm reading too much into it, but basically, I think he realized that socialists don't really like poor people, but they really, really don't like rich people, right? And that's what he came back with, if uh, if I remember correctly, because I haven't read it, but I know of its reputation. Um, and basically, he saw people being taken advantage of big time. I mean, coal miners, you're going into the dirt and going into the ground, going underground. I mean, you're going to get black lung, you're going to die in early life. You know what I mean? So, um, anyways, he said it was brutal conditions and so on and so forth. And I think he came to the realization that socialists um, don't really care about poor people, but they dislike rich people more than poor people. So they fight more on the side of poor people than they do on rich people because they just dislike rich people. I'm not sure. Um, I would have to, read it, right? Uh, Next up is another in that series of books. They all look like this type, but older. Um, this one is Animal Farm, which is basically what his critique on communism, about a farm that decides to revolt against its master, the farmer, and take over and make an egalitarian state. Unfortunately, he had a pig named Napoleon who decided that that was a perfect opportunity to take over the whole place, kind of idea, right? So um, it's his critique on communism, why communism doesn't work. All right, so it's quite an interesting read if you haven't. All of his stuff is extremely good. All right, you have his two main books that everybody reads, which is 1984 and Animal Farm, and then you have all of his essays. If you read his essays, yeah, they're going to expand your mind. And then, like I said, The Road to Wigan Pier is an eye-opening book as well, from my understanding. All right, so next up after that is Wuthering Heights by Bronte. I picked this up because it's a Bantam classic. What I do is I take 10 of the Bantam classics, put them together, and sell them for $30. It's they're nice editions. They're in competition with the Signet Classics, the Penguin Classics, Oxford World Classics, all those books that are in the public domain that these companies just reprint over and over again, right? So here's an example: Mark Twain's The Innocents Abroad, a Signet Classic. So I'll put all the Signet Classics together. When I come up with 10 of them, I'll sell them for 10 for 30, kind of idea. So they're all classics, great works. A mentor book, Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species, one of the most important books. If you're only going to read one book in science or nature or so on and so forth, I think this would be the book that you should read, correct? And this is an old mentor book. The mentor library was really, really good back in the 60s and 70s. They put out a huge um, library of all the classics of, philosophy, uh, you know, uh, Greek literature from ancient times, like all the comedies of, let's say, Sophocles and the tragedies of Euripides, and went through all of history. And basically, it was a library, a mentor library that basically mentors you into your introduction into knowledge and education, right? So they're really good books, and a lot of them are still around, but they are kind of old. So this one's The Origin of Species, which is basically Darwin's discovery that over time species will peter out, and others will thrive, just depending on what adaptations they do over hundreds of thousands of years, right, to survive, right, and basically change the whole philosophy of the world, and their and their interests and thought processes towards religion. There was kind of a break between science and religion at that point. But I'm still of the opinion that kind of science proves uh, science and religion aren't on opposite sides of the fence. They're kind of one kind of proves the other in a way. If you think about it, yeah, I know. Like for example, they used to think that thunder was made by a god. Now science says, it's a cold mass and a warm mass coming together that creates that perfect storm or whatever, right? That creates rain or hail or thunder or lightning, right? So they discover where it comes from, right? So, but basically, what science is just doing is like pushing God further into the background, kind of idea, but it's never disregarding God, if you know what I mean. Like, because there's always that question afterwards. Okay, so this is how lightning and electricity works, but why does it work that way, right? It's always that question, or where did it come from, kind of idea. That always, so no matter how much you push back, it seems kind of in a way, I don't know, this may be an incorrect logical argument, but it seems that the more and more science discovers and how things work and everything, it just seems seems like it's more and more um, proof that there's some sort of intelligence behind it. You know what I mean? So um, I mean, it's not perfect or whatever, but there's some sort of intelligence behind it. Now, whether you agree with this religion or that religion is a whole different argument. But just as in whether God exists or not, science never disproves that God exists. It just disproves that God is directly controlling something like lightning or thunder, right? They attributed human beings have a tendency to attribute the unknown to a deity, right? So the more you push back, the more you increase your knowledge, you just push God into the background. But you also kind of, because these systems work pretty well, there seems to be like an intelligent design behind it. But I could be wrong, right? All right, so that's Charles Darwin's The Origin of Species. Next up is probably the greatest Russian novel of all time, Crime and Punishment. But Raskolnikov, is that how you pronounce his name? Raskolnikov? Raskolnikov. Basically, he kind of takes a Nietzsche aspect, doesn't he? Where he thinks that there's a group of elite men that normal morals don't pertain to, so they could commit a murder, and it wouldn't be wrong, and that's what Dostoevsky explores in this book, and he kind of disproves that type of thought process. But anyways, you'll need to read it to understand what I'm talking about. All right. After that is another Signet classic. So here's a Wordsworth classic. Here's a Mentor, Signet classic, Bantam classic. Right. There's so many different companies that put out classic literature. Signet is one of the big ones, but the top two are obviously the Penguin classics and the Oxford World Classics, with Signet maybe in the third place. So this is a Hawthorne's The House of the Seven Gables. It says 150th anniversary of it. Um, this is one of his big books with the Scarlet Letter. You like American literature of the 1800s? You'll read Mark Twain, and you'll read Hawthorne. You'll read some others. All right. So next up after that, see, I'm getting through this pretty quickly. Troilus and Cressid, Creside, see, ignorant intellectual, by Chaucer. Basically, Chaucer has the Canterbury Tales, and he has this book. And here's a perfect example of a Penguin classic, the newest version of the Penguin classics. They're always black. They've been black since they started, right? Um, and this basically is the tragedy of Troilus and Creside. Creside. Hopefully, I'm not brutalizing that name, but no university education for a professor to tell me how to pronounce these words, right? I guess I could go on YouTube and hear them talk about it, and then I'll know exactly how it is. All right. Next up is Intelligence in the Modern World by John Dewey's philosophy. This is another of those Modern library giant. So this is giant number 43, if you can see it on the spine, right? So I collect them. There's like 110 of them, I think, somewhere around there, just over 100 of these large volumes. Um, most of the modern library come in a small paperback sized hardcover volume, and there's like about 800 of those, a little bit more than 800 of those. But they realized that some books they couldn't put in a regular size, like something the size of this. There's just too much of it, right? So they'd have to make the print extremely small in order to keep the book size um, similar to the other book sizes of the books in the library. So they came out with the modern library giants. And if you ever wonder what they are, you can always look on the inside of the dust jacket. I can't really do this one because they got a mylar cover over it, so it's blocking it. But basically, on the inside of all the modern library dust jackets, you'll see a list of all the books, right? So it's an easy way to collect. So this will be added to my library. All right, so that's Intelligence in the Modern World, John Dewey's Philosophy, a comprehensive selection from the life work of America's foremost philosopher and educator. All right, so next up is, speaking of, what do we do? What will we do? Um, yeah, let's take a break from that. Do I have any more? Yes, I have one more. All right, so we have the Eagles farewell tour live from Melbourne. All right, it's a nice DVD set. It's a box set, and it has a little booklet on the inside of it and two DVDs. So this is their last tour, their last concert series, or supposedly it was at the time. I don't know if they've played since, but the Eagles are one of the big names in what would you call it? Dad rock, classic rock, right? So when I saw this for like $3, I said, "Cool, I'll pick that up." All right, and what else? We have Miracle at Saint Anna, which is a Spike Lee um, film. So I figured I collect Spike Lee films, and I think I have this already on Blu-ray. Sorry, on DVD, but I didn't have it on Blu-ray, so that's perfect. So I picked it up. Now this one looks really nice. Basically, the untold story of courage and brotherhood. So I have not seen this Spike Lee film, so it will be on my list of watches. And then we got, what do we have? We have Plane, Trains, and Automobiles, John Hughes film, right? So back with his 16 Candles and other films of the 80s, he did this film starring Steve Martin and John Candy, and it's pretty hilarious if you haven't seen it. So, all right, let's get back to some books. We have Hell's Angels, Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson is like, what do you call it? What do they call him? A Mondo journalist? I can't remember what the expression of it was. Gonzo journalist? I think it was Gonzo journalism, wasn't it? Where he would, so what he did was he traveled around for a year or something with the Hells Angels, and then decided to write a book about it. And it's one of his more popular books. But anything by Hunter S. Thompson is really mind expanding or mind blowing, whatever. It's like quite entertaining how he writes. All right, so that's Hell's Angels by Hunter S. Thompson. All right, what do we got next? We're running out of space here. Okay, we got Einhart and Knocker the Staminer and Two Lives of Charlemagne. This is the original Penguin classic. So I had an older. I showed you the other Penguin classic, right? This is the old version of it. So there's a version of this before this one, or sorry, after this one, and then there comes this one, and then there's one that's before this one. You know, the only change between this one and the first ones that Penguin put out as the Penguin Classics were um, they would have an L number like L5, L7, L26 on the spine because they were numbered at the time when the Penguin Classics first started coming out. They were all numbered, right? So then they kind of got away with from it, and then the second version of the Penguin Classics, the exact same versions with the L's on the spine, but they didn't put the L's on the spines anymore. They just put them out, right? So this is Einhard and Notker the Staminer and Two Lives of Charlemagne. All right, so basically one of the ancient history books, right? So, all right, so that's I just wanted to show you one of the more original Penguin Classics, right? So, and what else do we have? We have uh, a Thomas Highway book from Penguin. All right, it's called Kiss of Kiss of the Fur Queen. I have not um, read this book, but Thomas Highway is one of the big, native literature, right? So I figured I'd pick it up and give it a look. See, all right. Have you read this book? Have you read Kiss of the Fur Queen? If you have, let me know what you think in the comments. All right. After that, we have The Social Contract by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I showed a book similar to this previously, but this is a did you read classic. I looks like somebody printed it. It's not like published by anybody. A didjoureads.com book. All right. So I guess you order it online and they print it out and then they send it to you. But basically, Rousseau is one of the big French philosophers, political philosophers. He speaks about in the social contract the contract between a government or a king or a queen and the people. The people have the power. They're the sovereign, not the king or the queen, and they're the ones that should be deciding on where society goes. Especially, I mean, why would you join the society and give up the freedom to do as you choose or limit that freedom in order to be oppressed, right? So he believes that there's like a difference between the government and the sovereign. The sovereign rests in the people, and the government is the ones that the people um, allow to, exercise power in order to get society going or whatever, right? So the smaller ones, it's more of an aristocracy that Rousseau believes. But as the society gets bigger, he thinks that a monarchy is the best way to run it, right? So, but he even if it is a monarchy, uh, it's my understanding that he doesn't believe that the monarchy is the representation of the sovereign, right? Uh, um, Even though you have a king, it's not birth that ends up continuing the line, and it isn't from a God giving, you know, uh, a king or a queen doesn't have a divine right, and then their offspring ends up ruling as well. No, you vote in your king or queen, so it's kind of like uh, a monarchy democracy, if you know what I mean. The sovereignty of the nation belongs to the people and it never leaves the people. They just put somebody in charge or a group in charge to help run things, but they're not the ones that have the sovereignty. It's the actual people. So you could, so he believes that like a king or a queen is the best way to run a larger type of grouping of people, but smaller ones could be run by an elite group of aristocrats, but again, the power rests in the people, not in the aristocrats, right? So, anyways, it's an interesting thought process the way that he thinks, but it's quite interesting if you like political philosophy, so you should read it. Next up is C.S. Lewis, The Screwtape Letters. I have not read anything past um, his Chronicles of Narnia books, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and the other ones, right? I have read a few of those. I haven't read all of them, but um, C.S. Lewis was a great Christian apologist, and a lot of his books that are outside the fantasy realm have to do with Christianity and that type of thing. So even if you're not a Christian, but you want to know how Christians think and what they believe and so on and so forth, obviously you're going to read the Bible, right? But there's other things, you can read St. Augustine's Confessions. That's one that you should read. And there's a bunch of other books, and Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis would probably be the one that I would recommend to read from C.S. Lewis. But he has other books like the Screwtape Letters that are also interesting to read as well. So, all right, what's up after that? We have Samson, Augustus, and Other Poems by John Milton. All right, so this is his most famous poem. It's about Samson. It's like a play, but a poem. It's a poem and a play together, and basically, it's about Samson, from the Bible. Basically, he it takes place. Milton doesn't tell the whole story of Samson. What he does is he takes Samson's life after um, he's been captured by the what was that group of people called? Um, I can't remember that. Anyway, so his hair has been cut already. His power has been lost. His eyes have been uh, gouged out. So he's blind and powerless, and then he's under the control of whatever the group of people. I can't remember the name of the people. And it basically is like a play on the misery of Samson after his fall, right? So it's uh, it's Milton's most famous work, I think. All right. Next up, I picked up the New Revised Standard Edition of the Bible. All right, in soft cover. So so difficult. So when you go out and you're buying books to resell, the condition of the books are extremely important. So the problem is transportation. Like you got to protect your books while they're in your car, and sometimes they get jostled around, and then this type of thing happens, right? So now it's got a bend in it, right? So it ends up meaning that it might not sell, or you got to sell it for a lower price just because when you transported it from where you bought it to home, it got damaged along the way. It's really hard to. So many books end up happening that way. So, but anyways, all right. So, and last but not least, I mentioned Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and here is that book in a Norton Critical Edition. I spoke about Norton Critical Editions before, um, how they're very good with. They have the text of the book, whatever the book is, right? And then they have like critical essays and information on it as well. So here's one, and they usually are in pretty good condition when you find them, right? So the Canterbury Tales and Norton Critical Edition, right? So if you are going to find these and you want them in nice shape, they do last a long time. They're well made books, but a lot of it's like a student book, right? So a lot of students will use highlight marker and everything in it, which basically makes the book unsaleable, right? So anyways, the Canterbury Tales is basically there's a group of guys who are traveling from London or to London from Canterbury. No, I think they're traveling from London to Canterbury to visit a church. And along the way, um, they tell stories, and whoever tells the best story or something has to buy lunch when they get there. Something like it wasn't finished. Chaucer didn't finish the work, but it's one of the classics of early English literature, and everybody ends up reading it when you take those courses, right? So, all right. So I think that's everything. Planes, trains, and automobiles. Yeah. Uh, That's it. That's all. Quick video. All right. So thank you for watching. If you find this entertainment, give me a thumbs up. Think about subscribing if you so choose. I do not want to pressure you, but I would appreciate it. And I'll talk to you in my next video. All right. You have a great day, and bye for now.